I don't know, like $10 for every time in my 30 years here that I've heard that Penn State is a racist institution because we don't hire enough people. I'd
Oh
be
my
rich
gosh.
and I could retire right now.
Oh my gosh. But that's facts. That is facts.
I want somebody to just respond to this. I found this graph, and somebody put together this. It's based on the 2019 census, right? What you have in the purple is the U.S. population. Okay, the population that's white, the population that's Hispanic, population that's black, that's Asian, and that's Native American. They looked at commercials from during the Super Bowl, and they looked at the people, and when they were large crowd, like who's represented in the commercials. So when you look at these, it
Oh
seems
wow.
with large crowds, they only chose the dominant actors, the ones that were really prominent. Okay, so now this is what we have. So this is the white population. Here's the percentage of people in the Super Bowl ads who were white. So there were
Jesus
fewer than
Christ.
we would expect given the population. Many fewer Hispanics and way more black people represented in the Super Bowl than our black people in the population. So does anyone have a thought on that?
I guess maybe like my first question is like, is it the goal of the Super Bowl commercials to be like representing people who they think are watching it? Like, is that so? Is like maybe my thought is like they're
Wait, what? But you don't think Hispanic people watch the Super Bowl when they take up this much of America? I didn't even know Hispanic people took up that much of America. Like, look at this chart. They're creeping up on 20%, but only about what is that, 3% were in the Super Bowl. It's very low. It's very low. And then you look at African Americans were about 15% of the country, and basically about 40% of the people in the Super Bowl commercials were black. So almost half. White is between 50 and 55%. Asian is it's actually pretty equal, I guess, with the population, but I'm just kind of confused on what you're getting at. I think the Super Bowl, I think everyone watches the Super Bowl. It just depends on what team is in the championship that year.
putting certain people in it because they think those people are probably watching it. Like that's what I'm sort of guessing.
That's what you're thinking.
Yeah.
That's the first thing that comes up. Like, maybe they're trying to represent people who are actually watching the game.
Or who they think are
Who they
they're
think
watching
are.
the game.
Okay, that's cool.
I was always
But
surprised when I would see statistics like this because the majority of people that play in the NFL and like a lot of the more like football and the NBA and stuff like that, there's a lot more like diverse, like as in race in that aspect. But then the people that perform, you see like stuff like this where it's like we're not really like represented in that place, but it's
Yeah.
a lot of us that play.
So okay,
in the
so
NFL.
this you could say really
Wait,
in
what?
some ways represents the players for
Yeah.
sure, right? Because this is saying, hey, like it's like 40% or so of all the people acting in the commercials are black, and at least that many players are black, but probably more.
Right, but it's just still, but not just with black. Like I know I'm black, but
Yeah.
not just with black people. Like look at the Asian and Native Americans
Yeah.
and Hispanics. Like they're not like not in the NFL. They
And they're
do
not,
play,
and they're not being
and
represented.
they're not being represented exactly.
Yeah. So if this was World Cup, if this was like soccer or football, it would be
Right.
a little different.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm just gonna echo off of that just a little bit.
Yeah, at first I didn't get what she was saying. Now I kind of understand a little more. She's basically implying that since I guess a larger portion of the NFL is black, then it will lead to more black people being in the commercials, which I don't really know what to say about that. If I'm being completely honest, at first, I'm going to be honest, I didn't even think of the fact that a large portion of NFL athletes are black, wanting to have more black people in the commercials. I guess my only problem wouldn't even say problem, I don't even think that's the right word, is that it's just so disproportional in terms of our population, and in reference to the people in the commercials. It's like it's basically almost 50-50. Like it's like half are white and half are black. I don't even know if I would say it's a problem, but it is kind of triggering or alarming when I see that, because my thing is, are they doing it because the population in the NFL is black, or are they doing it to, make more money or try to push a narrative? You get what I'm saying?
I'm gonna try to give a little bit of some business perspective in there. I mean, we all know that for the Super Bowl commercials, companies will pay, millions of dollars just to get like a time slot. But the NFL actually has really strict guidelines on what they will choose to air and what they will choose not to during their runtime. And a lot of that has to do with, let's say a company is like, oh, we're trying to change the face of this. They need to have some sort of representation of what like the NFL is. And I'm not sure if you guys know, but 70% of the NFL is African American. However, when it comes to people who are leading these sponsorship deals and you see their names on articles and videos, magazines, etc., that is predominantly white. So that would be the model that they would follow. And then when it comes down to it, like you guys are completely right with like the other factors that happen with like Hispanic people being more into like soccer or football, non-American.
Like everyone said.
Yeah, that makes sense, but and I'm just adding a different perspective. When you were trying to go to the NFL, it's not okay. 70% of the NFL is black, but here's the thing: they don't pick players for the NFL because they are black. They just pick the best players, and 70% happen to be black. That's just what it is. They're not gonna be like, oh, you're black, I'm gonna let you be our new quarterback or our new slot receiver. No, that's not how it works. It just like, okay, you happen to be black. That's what it is. But people would have a problem with this graphic because it kind of obviously shows that you're picking people because of their race. And that's just a different perspective that I would like, I guess, some answers on. Because when you look at the NFL or any professional sport, any like sport in general, they don't pick you based off of your race to be in that sport. They just pick the best people. And if you are black, white, it doesn't matter. They just pick the best people. But when you look at his commercials, you can have a good actor and they're like, well, we don't want you because you're not black enough. Or you're not, I don't know, man. I don't know. But anyways, let's continue.
Had like lack of representation. What came to my mind is like with award shows, they had huge backlash with the lack of representation with African Americans. So maybe to prevent that backlash as well.
So you think so you think that maybe there's like everyone is trying to do some kind of showing like, hey, we represent.
To keep it PC and like everyone happy. So like to prevent the negativity of like award shows. I think the Emmys and Oscars had the lack of representation. So something like that to maybe even cover themselves, but also make everyone happy who's watching the football.
You have all these different commercials, and each commercial has like 3 or 4 actors, let's say. And then, but each commercial feels like, oh my God, we have to have a black actor. Well, now you're really disproportionately, representing black people, because it's like, well, everyone has to show that. Like, you can't do a commercial and have only white actors in this world, right? Especially if.
But why? I don't see why you can't do that. Maybe it's because I look at it like an art. If they're the best at the job, then hire them. It's really not that. Jesus. Maybe what I'm saying is outdated. Maybe what I'm saying is just wrong. I think you could just hire the best person. It doesn't like, oh, you're black with an afro, or you're black with bro. That is kind of racist if I'm being honest. But anyways,
you only get one shot, and so but we can overlook Asians and Hispanics in this case.
I think what's happening here is, over the past couple of years, there's been, more pushes for diversity and representation. And I think in the U.S., what's getting the most attention for the past couple of years has been, issues that black people face. There's a movement called Black Lives Matter, not really Hispanic Lives Matter, Asian Lives Matter. And so when, companies that want to advertise are putting stuff together, they want to catch the least flack. So they're like, all right, who's looking for representation? They see black people, so they put more black people in the advertisements, and then they're like, okay, we have representation, give me your money now.
Yeah. Do you feel like you're being pandered to as a black guy? Given what he's saying, which is probably very much part of it, do you feel like in a way like you're being pandered to?
To be completely honest, I feel like we see it a lot during Black History Month. And we see it a lot during like other times which like black culture is pretty prominent. You see a lot of companies going into like, oh, we support black, and then like come April, or I mean, Black History Month is February, right? Come March, like nothing matters. So I think like to key in on, I think we are being pandered to. But to answer the question you originally asked, I think representation is largely based off of what a company thinks is going to be most profitable financially. So we see a lot of representation of whites because they're most likely to spend their money on commercials that they see, such as cars, new other things. And we see a lot of representation of black on certain issues and subjects because blacks are more likely to spend their money on like new movies or new shows statistically. So that's where the representation in my idea comes from.
I mean, you said, okay, you have Black History Month, right? That's when everybody really does it in. But I don't know. I see so much representation of black and brown people. Everybody in their, their company. If you're going to show the employees of your company, you're going to make sure you reach in and find a black person, a brown person, a woman, someone who's disabled, whatever. But that's the easy part. It's what comes after that that's much more the difficult part. It's like, well, what are we actually doing? There's a conversation at Penn State and at universities all across the United States that we do not have enough instructors or people in positions of power, or whatever the case is, who are black and brown. Okay, so in the liberal arts and in the
this is just racism, bro. This is just racism. I'm not even gonna lie. This is literal racism. If you're putting, and I get it, you want representation. But here's the thing: you are lowering the bar for people who are black, or as you say in the people of color. That's the new phrase. People of color. You're lowering the bar because if you automatically have the assumption that I'm going to have people in power because we want someone in power who's black now, or we want people in this commercial who's black now. Let's say 100 white people try out for that role or that job, and 5 black people try out. You already told yourself, or the company already told the other board of execs, that we're going to hire a black guy regardless. So really, you're not interviewing 105 people. You're interviewing 5 people. You just cut out 100 people who may have been qualified. That's just an example. Don't take it literally. It's just an example. But that is racist, bro. That is not right. That is not right. I'm sorry, it's not right. And the fact that everyone's like, they know what's happening. The students know what's happening. Like, oh, more inclusion. Of course. And I have nothing against black people getting roles. I hope nobody gets that from what I'm saying. I'm just saying when you have a job or opportunity that specifically says we will hire black people no matter what, like what Dr. Richards is saying, jobs that they say we need more black people in positions of power. You can't just say that. That's racist. That's not right. If you hire a black person and they happen to be in power, okay, you earn that role. But just saying that is not right, bro. Is racist. It's discrimination against people who aren't black, if I'm being honest, who apply for the role because they will never get it. But anyways, let's continue.
In the social sciences, there's increasing gender equity and parity. So when I started here at Penn State, I think we had one woman in the entire department, one professor, and now that number has moved to close to half, right? But there's another conversation about race. We're talking about this constantly. We need more black.
But here's the thing. I'm not saying that when you have a minority in a position such as a woman, because minority is subjective. It depends on the sample that you're talking about. But if you have a minority in places, women or black people or Asian people or whatever, that they don't deserve to be there. That's not what I'm saying. Because honestly, when you look at someone in a position, you don't know if they deserve to be there. So you shouldn't just assume they shouldn't. That is also racist or discriminatory. But when you hear upper like execs saying, okay, we only going to go after this type, or we're only going to do this, it's going to give you ideas in your head that, okay, this is not a fair playing field for anyone else. That's not right, bro.
And brown professors, there's like an endless critique of the administration and of people in power for not hiring more black and brown professors, and we should be hiring more black and brown professors, and why aren't we? And it's racism. And if I had a I don't know, like $10 for every time in my 30 years here that I've heard that Penn State is a racist institution because we don't hire enough people, I'd be rich
gosh.
and I could retire
Oh my
right now.
gosh.
So you presumably most professors would be people who have PhD degrees, and
Yeah.
and I'm just looking at in here. It's just black PhDs and Hispanic PhDs that were awarded in 2019. These are all fields. This isn't just liberal arts or social sciences or whatever. So if we look at black PhDs awarded, 4.5%, the 2,512 represents 4.5% of all PhDs that were awarded in the United States that year. Of the 55,000, were people who identified as black. 12% of the U.S. population is black. And Hispanic, 5.1%, and 19% of the U.S. population in 2019 is black. Okay? So now return to the question of Penn State should be hiring more professors who are black and Hispanic.
But that's facts. That is facts. Because if only 4.5% of people who even have PhDs or who were awarded PhDs in a specific year were black, how could you hire more black people to be professors? That basically means if only 2,500 were granted PhDs in that year, that means that if you were to apply to a school like Penn State, let's say half of the people who got PhDs got your major, which is extremely unrealistic. But let's say it's 1,700 people or whatever who got a PhD in your specific field. Let's say even cut that in half again. 850 live on your side of the country. And then cut that in half again, and just keep cutting it into smaller numbers to the amount of people who apply for this role. If the school already said we're going to hire a black professor, you basically won't even have that much competition to get the job because you don't have no one to compete with. By the time you apply to Penn State, what is the chances of another person who is black who got a PhD in your specific field who applied at this time? What are the chances of that happening? You're basically guaranteed a job with really not much competition, if I'm being honest, just based off of your skin color. Imagine another time that happened. Remember when that did happen? We had a whole civil rights movement. Like it was literally a civil rights movement the last time stuff like that happened. And I'm not saying it's that bad, y'all, but I'm saying that line of thinking has led to crazy bad things in society.
Interpret that statement from the lens of these data. What do you see?
That the pool of people applying to be professors at the school might be smaller than the group of white people with PhDs applying.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So the group applying is going to be a lot smaller than the percentage of people in the population.
I don't really think the school itself is racist. I think it's the racist ideologies, like of the people here. And more so, I don't think, like the girl up there said, I think it's more so the people aren't applying, not because it's a racist institution. I think people aren't applying to be in the middle of Pennsylvania. Like, it's a boring ass place. Excuse my French, but like, it's the middle of Pennsylvania. How many black people do you really see in State College? Like, let's be very honest.
And I'm gonna touch on her point. I'm gonna touch on her perspective because if you're in college or if you're my age, I don't know if I have a lot of college students watching, but you know a lot of your professors, They have very heavy accents, and it's pretty evident that they've learned a second language, and they're teaching you their class in their second language. Hear me out. The reason I brought that up is because you're kind of making fun of the Penn State area, saying like, well, why would a black person want to be here at a prestigious university such as Penn State, where you have other professors that you probably take right now or that you have taken who literally moved across the world to be at your state university or your university. But you think that your race of professors are too good to move to wherever Penn State is. But you have other races, Indian professors or Asian professors. I mean, like, yeah, Asian professors who literally move across the world just to get the opportunity to teach at a university. But this is like a real, like, she's being honest here. You think that black professors are just too good to live in an area like Penn State because it's so boring. Like, this is what I be talking about. This mindset is terrible. But anyways, I'm not going to attack her. Let's continue.
It's cold up here. Like, people have other opportunities to go elsewhere. I don't really think people aren't coming here because Penn State is racist. I think it's just there's better opportunities to go. Like, I would rather be in Miami right now, like at Florida, in hot weather than be in a mountainous area with cold. And like, I see very little representation. And like, you also have to think like, schools, your children are going to be in schools with people that don't look like them. Like, I would rather put my kids in schools with, like, you know, more diverse, in a more diverse area. But they're getting.
But that was like, do y'all hear this? And I understand, but it's kind of racist, because if you were a white woman, and you said, why would I want to be in an area like that? It's too many black people. And I'd rather put my kid in a less diverse area. That is pure racism. But when you're black and you say, "Oh, I'd rather put my kid in a more diverse," these are like buzzwords. That's why I'm playing around with them. It's still racist, but you're just black, and you're like, "Oh, why?" It's just, all this is just racist.
If only 4% of the PhDs awarded are black people. Let's just say, stick with black people, right? And if you look around and you say, like, hey, what percentage of Penn State professors are black? And then we say, yeah, it's somewhere around like 4%, let's say, right? I don't know what it is, but my guess is, if we include the Commonwealth campus and so on, my guess is it's about 4%. And if we say, so what people say is, it's only 4%.
Consider that New Year's resolution.
Oops, sorry, y'all, I was an ad. But I'm going to end this video here, I guess. I ran into an ad and I'm running out of time on my camera. But I'm going to link the original in the bottom. But the professor was basically saying, well, if it's only 4% were awarded PhDs and now 4% are professors, then what's the problem? And he's kind of right. But anyways, it's LFR Jojo, and I'll see you on the next one.